We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, so give us some cash. Or don't. What do I care? Anyways, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Austin. And last year, or whenever I decided to finally upload that video, I reviewed Elf, which is a classic that most of us probably watch every Christmas. I watch it every Christmas, my mom watches it every Christmas, everyone does. It's a classic and I reviewed that movie, and I recommend checking out that review. This year, I'm not quite reviewing a traditional Christmas movie, but rather a movie that takes place around Christmas time. And what is that movie in question? Well, since I reviewed the first movie, back around, which I think I did around April, but didn't upload until a lot later. But anyway, the movie I'm reviewing, that is Batman Returns, from director Tim Burton and starring Michael Keaton, Michelle Pfeiffer, Danny DeVito, and Christopher Walken, and one of my favorite movies of all time. So, without further ado, let's talk about it. The plot of Batman Returns is as follows. It centers on the Dark Knight as he takes on two threats. The Penguin, a crime lord who is abandoned by his parents due to his disfigurations and animalistic behavior, who attempts to run for mayor and control Gotham City with the help of corrupt business tycoon Max Schreck, and Catwoman, a figure with an interest in Batman who vows revenge against Schreck for attempting to murder her. What follows are all sorts of chaos, including an attempt to frame Batman, and the Penguin attempting to kill all of Gotham's firstborn children. Yeah, it's pretty much that. It'll make more sense when you watch it, but overall, it's a good plot, and everything you could ever want in a Batman story. Now let's get to the production. Production began really with Warner Brothers, who, following the success of the first film, was jet set on producing a sequel, hoping to begin the filming in May of 1990 over at Pinewood Studios, even going so far as to spend $250,000 to store the sets from the first film. However, director Tim Burton wasn't interested in directing another installment at first, claiming in 1989, "I will return if the sequel offers something new and exciting. Otherwise, it's a most dumbfounded idea." Rather, Burton instead opted to direct Edward Scissorhands for 20th Century Fox, and during that time, Sam Hamm, who had worked on the previous installment, delivered the first two drafts of the script, while Bob Kane jumped back on to be a creative consultant. And as with most Batman media prior to 2016, including the first Batman film, Bill Finger, who helped create Batman, Catwoman, and the Penguin, went uncredited at the time of the film's release. Hamm's original idea for the movie was conceived as the Penguin and Catwoman going after a lost treasure, because I guess he saw how that Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade beat Batman at the box office and thought, let's do a Batman movie crossed with Indiana Jones, or something like that. Meanwhile, Burton was impressed with Daniel Waters' work on the movie Heathers, and had originally brought him on to do a proposed sequel to Beetlejuice, but eventually both signed on to do Batman Returns, and thus that project was shelved, something that still continues to go unmade as of 2021. Burton then negotiated with Warner Brothers to have the first film's producers, John Peters and Peter Guber, join Benjamin Melniker and Michael E. Uslan as executive producers, while Burton and Denise DeNovi, who had previously produced Heathers and Edward Scissorhands, and helped produce The Nightmare Before Christmas, Ed Wood, James and the Giant Peach, Crazy Stupid Love, and both the 1994 and 2019 adaptations of Little Women, became the flick's top billed producers, with Chris Kenny being replaced by Larry Franco as the line producer. Larry Franco is probably best known as a producer for some of John Carpenter's movies, including Escape from New York, Starman, Big Trouble in Little China, Prince of Darkness, and They Live, plus also produced Mars Attacks for Tim Burton, and the start of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, Batman Begins. Dissatisfied with the script that Sam Hamm had written, Burton commissioned a rewrite from Waters, who came up with a quote-unquote social satire that had an evil mogul backing a bid for the mayor's office by the Penguin. He later elaborated, I wanted to show that the true villains of our world don't necessarily wear costumes. The subplot of the Penguin running for the mayor's office actually came from two episodes of the old school 1960s TV series, those being His Honor the Penguin and Dishonor the Penguin, for which Waters conceived a total of 5 drafts. When it came to how Catwoman was to be portrayed, Waters explained, Sam Hamm went back to the way comic books treat women, like fetishy sexual fantasy. I wanted to start off just at the lowest point in society, a very beaten down secretary. Although Harvey Dent was originally in the early drafts of the script, which would have involved his disfiguring appearance of Two-Face appearing in the climax via Catwoman kissing him with a taser to the face, he was eventually cut from the film and replaced with the character of Max Schreck. Waters quoted, Sam Hamm definitely planned that. I flirted with it. Having Harvey start to come back and have one scene of him where he flips the coin and it's the good side of the coin, deciding not to do anything, so you had to wait for the next movie. During some of the earliest scripts, Max Schreck was intended to be the golden boy of the Cobblepot family, with the Penguin while the Penguin was viewed as the outcast due to his deformities. There was even a plot twist revealing Max Schreck as the Penguin's long-lost brother, but this was all eventually discarded. And in case it wasn't obvious, because you have the brain of an insect, the name of Max Schreck is a reference to actor Max Schreck, the actor best known for playing Count Orlok in Nosferatu. But you probably already knew this because you grew up watching the SpongeBob SquarePants episode Graveyard Shift, and saw Count Orlok flipping the light switch and then asked your parents what Nosferatu was. Now then, let's move on. When it came to the pre-production, there was quite a bit going on. This includes Tim Burton hiring Wesley Strick, who did writing for Arachnophobia, Martin Scorsese's remake of Cape Fear, Wolf, and Return to Paradise, to perform an uncredited rewrite, for which he recalled, when I was hired to write Batman Returns, Batman 2 at the time, the big problem with the script was the Penguin's lack of a master plan. For ideas that Strick could use, one of Warner Bros.' ideas was an idea of freezing Gotham to be as cold as Mandy, or warming it up like it was my Hot Pockets, a plot point that would eventually use for Batman and Robin. Why, God? Why? Anyway. One of the ideas that Strick gained was a parallel to Moses with the idea of the Penguin killing Gotham's firstborn son as an act of revenge for how the Penguin's parents threw him into the river when he was just a baby. Meanwhile, there were intentions of having Robin appear in the film, even having him included in the script, but David Waters deleted him due to him feeling that there were too many characters, and even said that when compared to Batman, who is traditionally a loner, Robin is a useless character. The concept started with Robin being a juvenile gang leader that gradually becomes an ally to Batman, before eventually being altered to be a black teenage garage mechanic. Excuse me. Waters explained, he's wearing this old-fashioned garage mechanic uniform and it has an R on it. He drives a Batmobile, which I noticed they used in the third film. To further the fact that there was almost a Black Robin, Marlon Wayans was cast and even signed on for Batman Returns, even attending a wardrobe fitting before it was decided to save the character for a third installment, and by that point, it was decided that Robin should be whiter than I am. Meanwhile, Michael Keaton returned to play Batman after a drastic increase in his salary to $10 million, which Tim Burton felt was best deserved, and Annette Bening was originally given the role of Catwoman after Burton saw her performance in The Grifters, but eventually dropped out after becoming pregnant. With this in mind, many other actresses were considered to play Catwoman, including Meryl Streep, who Burton labeled as being too old, Brooke Shields, who Burton deemed unbankable, Demi Moore, Nicole Kidman, who would eventually appear as Dr. Chase Meridian in Batman Forever, Jodie Foster, Gina Davis, Sigourney Weaver, Lena Olin, Madonna, Cher, Susan Sarandon, Ellen Barkin, Lorraine Bracco, Jennifer Beals, Bridget Fonda, and Jennifer Jason Leigh. Hell, Sean Young, who had originally been cast for Vicki Vale in the first film before a horse riding injury led her to drop out, felt the role should have gone to her, even visiting production offices in a homemade Catwoman costume, demanding an audition. But eventually, Michelle Pfeiffer was given the role of Catwoman, following a meeting between her and Burton, despite the latter not being familiar with Pfeiffer's work. For this, she was given a $3 million salary, which was $2 million more than what Benning received, alongside a percentage of the box office returns, and Pfeiffer began taking kickboxing lessons for the role and practiced how to handle a whip, where she ended up cutting her teacher's chin. If that's not impressive, I don't know what is. When it came to the Danny DeVito becoming the Penguin, Waters claimed, "I kind of knew that Danny DeVito was going to play the Penguin. We didn't really officially cast it, but for a short, nasty little guy, it's a short list. I ended up writing the character for Danny DeVito." I'd like to also mention that before DeVito was cast, Dustin Hoffman was the original first choice for the Penguin, but declined, while other actors such as Marlon Brando, John Candy, Bob Hoskins, Ralph Waite, Dean Martin, Dudley Moore, Alan Rickman, John Goodman, Phil Collins, yes, that Phil Collins, Charles Grodin, Christopher Lee, Joe Pesci, Ray Liotta, Gabriel Byrne, Alex Rocco, and Christopher Lloyd were all considered before it was ultimately decided that Frank should go blasting in as the Penguin. Meanwhile, Burgess Meredith, the classic Penguin from the 1960s Batman TV series, and Mickey Goldmill from Rocky, was given the job of playing Tucker Cobblepot, the Penguin's papa in the film, in a cameo role, but began to fall ill, so the role was assumed by Paul Reubens, who, in case you're stupid, worked with Tim Burton on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the film that arguably jump-started both their careers. Now with that out of the way, let's get to the filming. When it came around time for the filming to begin, it was done not at Pinewood Studios, sadly, but at two of Hollywood's largest sound stages, possibly at the time, with those being Stage 16 at Warner Brothers and Stage 12 over at Universal Studios. The preparations of the sound stages began early in 1991, before commencing the filming in June of that year, with Stage 16 housing Gotham Plaza, which was based off of Rockefeller Plaza, while Universal's Stage 12 housed the Penguin's underground lair, where a 500,000-gallon tank filled with water was used. Meanwhile, at least 8 other locations on the Warner Bros. Backlot were utilized for the Gotham City sets, with over 50% of the property being used, including the old Brownstone Street and Hennessy Street. Elsewhere, animal rights groups began a protest of the film after the discovery of rockets being strapped to the penguins' backs. For which Richard Hill, the curator for the animals, helped clarify that Warner Brothers made sure that the penguins were comfortable, as did Tim Burton, so as not to avoid a similar scenario to Heaven's Gate. On the flight over, the plane was refrigerated down to 45 degrees. In Hollywood, they were given a refrigerated trailer, their own swimming pool, half a ton of ice each day, and they had fresh fish delivered daily from the docks. Even though it was 100 degrees outside, the entire set was refrigerated down to 35 degrees. With this in mind, the Penguins were A-OK, while poor Michelle Pfeiffer was colder than Bernie Sanders' hotel room, as she had on only the thin latex catsuit most of the time. According to the American Humane Association's on-set oversight, the 6 Emperor Penguins acting as the pallbearers for the Penguin's body at the film's climax were actually people with dwarfism, or midgets, or little people, dwarves, those of short stature, whatever you want to call them, dressed as Emperor Penguins. Meanwhile, to avoid anything being shown to the public, Warner Bros. Dedicated a huge amount of secrecy for Batman Returns, with the art department being required to keep the blinds in their offices down, almost as if it were in a conversation or something. The cast and crew needed to have photo ID badges on hand with the film's fake working title, Dictal, which was also the name of Jeremy's failed Broadway play, to go anywhere near the movie sets, and they even went so far as to deny Kevin Costner any chance to visit the set. If that isn't an extreme way to keep filming a secret, I don't know what is. Anyway, a private investigator was hired to track down a person after an entertainment magazine gained the chance to publish the first photos of Danny DeVito as the Penguin. I know, a bit extreme, but they didn't exactly want too much attention around the film so as not to spoil it. As for the budget, a total of $65 million was spent during Batman Returns' production, while at least $15 million was used to help market the movie, which, all things considered, gave the budget a total of $80 million, which these days is peanuts, but back then, it was a lot of money. Meanwhile, the final shot of Catwoman looking at the bat signal wasn't in the original shooting script, but was instead added during post-production because Warner Brothers wanted it to be that Catwoman survived in case of more characterizations for future installments. Pfeiffer was unavailable for the scene, so a body double, most likely Kathy Long, who was her stunt double for the movie, was utilized instead. I'll get to Catwoman's future in the aftermath part of this review, but for right now, let's get to the design and effects for the film. The design and effects for the film started with Tim Burton hiring production designer Bo Welch, who worked on Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands with Burton, and has also worked on films such as The Color Purple, The Lost Boys, The Accidental Tourist, Ghostbusters 2, Grand Canyon, Wolf, The Birdcage, The Men in Black trilogy, Primary Colors, and Thor, to replace the original film's production designer Anton Furst, who was busy working on Awakenings for Columbia Pictures, and thus he was unable to return for the sequel. Sadly, Awakenings would be the final film that Furst would work on, as he tragically took his own life on November 24th, 1991. Anyway, for Gotham City, Welch blended together fascist architecture with the architecture found in a World's Fair, while also studying Russian architecture and German Expressionism, and for the Batcave, an Iron Maiden was used for Bruce Wayne's entry into the Batcave. Meanwhile, makeup effects legend Stan Winston, who helped Burton out on Edward Scissorhands and even worked on Big Fish with him, designed the prosthetics for Danny DeVito, which took around 2 hours to apply. Coincidentally, that's how long the first film ran for, so I'm guessing Danny DeVito watched that while the man behind the Xenomorph did his thing. Also, DeVito applied a combination of mouthwash and red and green food coloring in his mouth so that the disgusting ooze that comes out of his mouth will be as grotesque as Emil's transformation in RoboCop. DeVito did not find the costume comfortable, but it did help him to better get into character. Meanwhile, at least more than 60 latex catsuits were created for the 6-month shoot for $1,000 a pop, with the initial concept coming from Tim Burton, who had the idea of a stuffed cat with stitches falling apart at the seams. The prototype was conceived around a body cast of Michelle Pfeiffer that would fit her like a glove, and was painted with white silicone rubber to imitate stitches. It was tighter than putting a onesie on a cow, and required a bit of elbow grease to put on, with Pfeiffer needing to be covered in talcum powder just to cram her into the costume, which in turn was brushed with liquid silicone for every take to make it shine brighter than Sammy Hagar's ever-so-white smile. Pfeiffer usually had to wear the costume from approximately 12 to 4 hours at a time, except during lunch breaks when it was removed, which was the only time she had to make a pit stop during the workday, because with superhero costumes, it's very hard to go to the bathroom in most of them. Moving to the Batsuit, it was given some updates, including being made out of a thinner, slightly more flexible rubber material than what the original film's Batsuit was made of, and the logo was altered to better resemble how it looked in the comics, alongside a zipper in case Michael Keaton had to pee, and the upper body build wasn't a muscular physique. When it came to how Max Schreck was intended to look, inspiration was taken from the wardrobe of J.P. Morgan, the financier and banker who dominated the corporate finance on Wall Street during the Gilded Age. Meanwhile, the bats used in the film were completely manufactured through computer-generated imagery due to potential difficulties in trying to use actual bats on set, while the penguin's army of birds were a combination of CGI, animatronics, men in suits, and actual penguins. Also, miniature effects were utilized for the exteriors of Cobblepot Mansion in the opening and Wayne Manor, same with the Bat Boat and the exteriors of Gotham Zoo. And now with that, let's go to the music and sound for this flick. When it came to the sound/music for the movie, Danny Elfman was ecstatic for being able to return, because as he said, "I didn't have to prove myself from the first film. I remember John Peters was very skeptical at first to hire me." He also said, "When completing this movie, I realized it was something of a film score and an opera. It was 95 minutes long, twice the amount of the average film score." Elfman's work schedule was about 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, for which Tim Burton gave him free rein to be as artistic as he wanted with the film's sequel score, including the scraping on violins for the cat themes. However, due to the pressure being placed on Elfman to get the score finished, his relationship with Burton became strained, something which worsened during the production of The Nightmare Before Christmas due to creative differences. As a result, Burton opted to have future Lord of the Rings composer Howard Shore perform the score for Ed Wood, Burton's next film. Although, by the time of Mars Attacks in 1996, he and Elfman had made amends, and the only other film that the two didn't work on after that was Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, which was done by the late Stephen Sondheim. Like yourself, watch Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street in the future. Elfman also co-orchestrated the song Face to Face by Susie and the Banshees, which Burton personally recommended himself, claiming, "I've always been a fan. Susie is one of the very few women who can create a realistic primal cat sound." The song is heard during the charity ball scene with Bruce and Selena dancing, and during the end credits. It should also be noted that Batman Returns was the first film to be announced as being released with Dolby SRD technology, something that is still used today under the name of Dolby Digital. And now that we have this out of the way, let us get to the final verdict. Batman Returns is awesome, and one of my favorite movies of all time, other than the other Batman film, The Dark Knight Rises. It's one of the few sequels that more than lives up to the original, and is probably the best superhero film of the 90s, not to mention the best sequel to 1989's Batman, no matter how decent Batman Forever is. To start, the movie's production design is spectacular, with Gotham City once again looking phenomenal, especially with Gotham Plaza. Plus, with the Christmas setting, it gives an eerie feeling of being dark, cold, and dingy, as Gotham should probably be around the holidays. Other great set pieces include the Penguin's Lair, the Ballroom, and Gotham Zoo, complete with enough snow that may require a plow to be able to walk or drive through. Moving to the special effects, they're pretty good, with fantastic miniatures that look exceptional when they blow up, and CGI that doesn't look half bad, all things considered. Plus, the Penguin's makeup effects, courtesy of Stan Winston, are fantastic. Moving forward, the performances are still top-notch, with Michael Keaton still being excellent as Batman, showcasing the darker, badass side of the Cape Crusader, and the sensitive side of Batman, Bruce Wayne, with the charm of James Bond and the likability of James Stewart. Meanwhile, Danny DeVito is excellent as the Penguin, because on one hand, yet kind of sympathize with him due to the fact that his parents abandoned him due to his deformities and behavior, meaning they judged him solely on looks rather than the person inside, as they could have helped him act normal instead of the animal that he is. On the other hand, you are also terrified of him because of his looks and animalistic actions, which is helped through Stan Winston's great makeup and Danny DeVito's performance, which make him an excellent villain for this movie. Next up is Michelle Pfeiffer as Selina Kyle / Catwoman, whose transformation from shy secretary to cold and calculating villain / antihero, being sexy, stylish, and badass all at once, as Catwoman should be. Something that Pfeiffer more than nails, she excels. Plus, she also captures the feeling of a woman who's been pushed around for far too long, and has finally had enough, and the madness that entails such a journey. Up next on the good performance bandwagon, Christopher Walken is a walkin' as a walkin' can be as Max Schreck, playing the corrupt business tycoon as dastardly as can be. From the way he tries to build up the Penguin as his hero and potential mayor-to-be, to the way he betrays him after the Penguin is exposed, Walken nails it with every step of the way. Plus, Michael Gough is still pretty good as Alfred, Pat Hingle is memorable as Commissioner Gordon, Michael Murphy is alright as the mayor of Gotham, and Vincent Schiavelli is fun as the organ grinder. And be sure to keep a lookout for Paul Rubens, Diane Salinger, Doug Jones, and the late Jan Hooks. Next up, the action sequences are pretty cool, from the scene with the Batmobile in which the Penguin begins controlling it, to the climactic Batboat scene, to the scenes of the Red Triangle gang attacking in order to draw Batman out. They're cool scenes that have decent choreography and fun set pieces. Also, the pacing is pretty good, ensuring that there is no scene that leaves you feeling bored or exhausted. And at 2 hours, that's no easy feat. But this feat was not only accomplished, it also shows how a Batman movie, a superhero movie, and how any movie in general should feel. Because good pacing, as I say, leaves you excited and wanting more. Lastly, Danny Elfman's score is great. And while it's not as memorable as some of the tracks in the first film, it's still a superb score, including with Catwoman's scenes. They capture the mood of the film and enhance the tone of the movie, which, given that it's Danny Elfman, he makes it look easy. And as for the song Face to Face by Susie and the Banshees, it's a pretty good song, although it feels more like a James Bond theme, more so than a Batman theme. Still, it is more than memorable, even if it doesn't match the dance-fueled songs of the first film's Prince soundtrack. If there were any problems with the film, I truthfully didn't have any, although I could see someone finding this either too dark or too violent. And yeah, I can kinda see that, but I find it fits the tone of the movie rather than being a distraction to the overall film. But overall, Batman Returns is a damn near radical movie, and one that I cherish just as much as the first film. And so does Jeremy.
Damn right I cherish Batman Returns. That movie is killer. It is phenomenal and easily stacks up with the first film. And not only that, but it's a great film to watch around Christmas time, alongside your Die Hards and your Silent Night, Deadly Nights, and your Black Christmases, and your Christmas Stories, and your It's a Wonderful Lives. It's perfect for the holidays. And yeah, Merry Christmas, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and it may not be Thanksgiving, but I am so thankful that Austin gave me a second chance. Here's to him. This is the good stuff right here.
Pepsi, the choice of a new generation. Batman Returns was actually pretty successful. While it was only number 6 of the highest grossing films of 1992, compared to the first film being number 2 in 1989, it still brought in $266.89 million on a budget of $80 million, ensuring that it made a profit. Even if it didn't outgross Lethal Weapon 3, Basic Instinct, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, The Bodyguard, or probably Disney's most successful animated movie until The Lion King, Aladdin. It also garnered good reviews and even received 2 Academy Award nominations, including Best Visual Effects and Best Makeup. However, Danny DeVito also gained a Razzie nomination for Worst Supporting Actor for the film, which furthers my point from the Dress to Kill review that the Razzies are a bunch of trolls. But that's nothing compared to the controversy that it received from the big public, with many criticizing its PG-13 rating due to its dark content, violence, and sexual innuendo, which led most infamously to McDonald's pulling its Happy Meal promotion for the film. I'm willing to guess that those are the same people who criticized Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Gremlins for their violence and being rated PG, which actually contributed to the PG-13 rating becoming a thing. People just don't know what they want, do they? But anyway, with all of this in mind, between the film being criticized as too dark and the fact that it didn't gross as much money as the first film, this all led to Warner Bros. Asking Tim Burton to step down as director for the third Batman film, leading to the creation of Batman Forever, registering Batman Returns as the last of the Keaton-Burton Batman films. Say that 5 times fast. And with Catwoman surviving at the end of Batman Returns, it was inevitable that she would return. Or should I say, would have returned, as there was a spin-off intended with Michelle Pfeiffer returning to the role, Daniel Waters writing the screenplay and Tim Burton directing, but that all ended up diving into development hell, and what we got is one of the worst movies known to men and women around the world. But the story doesn't end there, as it also spawned a comic book continuation in the form of Batman 89, which ignores the Schumacher-directed films in favor of continuing from where Batman Returns left off, and Michael Keaton is currently set on reprising the role of Batman in the DCEU film The Flash, which also ignored Joel Schumacher's contributions to Batman. Either way, Batman Returns symbolized the end of an era for Batman, and even though Batman Forever is okay, it also symbolized the beginning of the Dark Age for the Dark Knight in film. It kind of makes you wonder what Tim Burton's third Batman movie would have been like, had Batman Returns made just as much money as the first film, if not even more. Would it have been even darker, maybe even warranting an R rating of sorts? Or would it have just been the same, if not lighter? The world may never know. Either way, it was fun while it lasted, and Batman Returns is still a classic of the superhero genre, with Tim Burton stating, "I like Batman Returns better than the first one. There was this big backlash that it was too dark, but I found this movie less dark." Hey, it's his movie. He can say whatever he wants about it. Batman Returns is awesome, and I highly recommend it. Whether you decide to pick it up on this 2-disc edition DVD here, or its more modern Blu-rays, it's a film that you should definitely, without a doubt, seek out, especially around this time of the holidays. Alongside Elf, Die Hard, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Black Christmas, A Christmas Story, It's a Wonderful Life, A Charlie Brown Christmas, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the 1966 original TV special featuring narration by Boris Karloff and animated by Chuck Jones, or the 2000 movie starring Jim Carrey, How It Works. The Rankin Bass specials like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa Claus Coming to Town. Christmas Evil, Die Hard 2, that's also taking place around Christmas. Other installments would not take place around Christmas. The Ref also takes place around Christmas. Love Actually, Ernest Saves Christmas, Bad Santa, White Christmas, Scrooge, Home Alone, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, The Bishop's Wife, Gremlins. Basically, whatever you watch around the holidays is perfect. The performances are great, from Michael Keaton being still awesome as Batman, Danny DeVito being very good as the Penguin, Michelle Pfeiffer making for a very good portrayal of Catwoman, and Max Schreck being awesomely portrayed by Christopher Walken. It has great special effects, it has awesome action sequences, Danny Elfman's score is top-notch. It's just a great movie, and one that makes you wonder, what would Tim Burton's third Batman movie would have been like? Would it have been R-rated and probably something incredibly violent and darker? Or would it have been something lighter? Maybe perhaps a Batman dark comedy, something akin to maybe Fargo or something. We may never know. But, regardless, it's an awesome movie and one I definitely recommend. And with that, this concludes my review of Batman Returns. I hope you enjoyed it, found it entertaining, educational, and made you want to go seek out this movie, whether you watched it on around the holidays or not. Either way, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Or have a Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, make it a good one. And do it for Austin. Yeah. So with that, I will catch you later. I'll see you next time. I'm going to go watch Charlie Brown Christmas and make sure my dad doesn't drink all the eggnog. So, bye now.
Okay. This is a song that, there's a lot of Christmas songs out there, and not too many Hanukkah songs. So, wrote a song for all those nice little Jewish kids who don't get to hear any Hanukkah songs. Here we go. Put on your yarmulke, here comes Hanukkah. So much Hanukkah to celebrate Hanukkah. Hanukkah is the festival of lights. Instead of one